Our third and final analysis takes a scalpel to the specific behavioral anomalies and tactical investigative responses seen in the field. We begin by examining the psychological fallout of the pursuit, focusing on the subtle shifts in the suspect's narrative. The officer's description of the family background of a colleague, parents wanted her to be a nurse or engineer before she ended up in law enforcement, serves as a humorous, if brief, counterpoint to the criminal psychology, highlighting the alternative behavioral trajectories available. The high-speed pursuit in the silver Camry is a great example of geographical anchoring in a chase. The suspect's continuous circling of the West Covina and La Puente area is not random. It suggests a psychological comfort zone and a reliance on familiarity in a high-stress scenario. This predictable circular route makes the suspect's capture a matter of time and positioning, validating the officer's assessment that he's definitely from this area. The officer's decision to pursue the vehicle based on the manner of driving on the wrong side of the roadway and the location, the known crime motel, illustrates proactive policing based on a threat assessment matrix. The felony evading charges are a consequence not just of the theft, but of the dramatic and reckless way the suspect chose to express his guilt. His ultimate surrender is a recognition of the futility of resistance, a key psychological step in the arrest process. The suspect's final desperate attempt to convey he is not afraid of what you find in there regarding the car's contents is a last-ditch effort at maintaining dignity and control in a situation where both are utterly lost. Next, we look at the case of Peter the jogging janitor, a man who embodies the phrase, "Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but running from it is a felony." His immediate full-out sprint when pulled over for a burglary in progress effectively transforms a non-committed crime into an act of resisting and delaying a police investigation. The core of Peter's psychology is a profound aversion to accountability. The officer's patient yet firm handling of Peter, allowing him to sit and cool down before questioning, is a calculated investigative move. It allows the adrenaline to subside, replacing the fight or flight impulse with a slightly more rational, though still flawed, verbal defense. His repeated, almost tick-like assertion that all I do is fixing the cable, despite the photographic evidence of him holding the camera that was screwed into the wall, is a humorous illustration of a man desperately clinging to a flimsy reality. His eventual arrest for vandalism is a procedural closure to a case that began with a dramatic flight, proving the old adage that the cover-up is often worse than the crime. The officer's final decision, based on the objective evidence of the camera being removed and his history of non-compliance, overrules Peter's subjective and humorous attempts at self-justification. The final two cases offer a rich comparison in the world of vehicle-related crime. The red Infiniti driver's flight from the car meet is driven by fear of minor consequence, a ticket, or disappointing his mother, leading to a major felony. This is a classic young offender's blunder. His crime is an effective response based on panic, not a predatory response based on calculated gain. The officers quickly move from pursuit to a calm educational interrogation, using the severity of the felony, evading as a clear and immediate deterrent for him and the wider car meet community. Conversely, Kim, on the stolen moped, presents a more complex deflection strategy. Found on a stolen vehicle with an obvious manipulated ignition, her defense is a complex web of externalizing blame. My boyfriend Patrick let me borrow it and feigned ignorance. I was not aware. She attempts to play the role of the passive victim. But the officer uses the objective evidence, the VIN confirms stolen, and the manipulated ignition to immediately dismiss her claim. The manipulation of the ignition, a clear modus operandi of vehicle theft, is the critical piece of physical evidence that undermines her verbal defense. The officer's final statement This context. Mark's arrest for the burglary tools and stolen merchandise is the investigative highlight. The initial traffic stop is a tactical pretext stop. His probation status for identity theft, a crime of deception and exploitation, immediately sets a high suspicion benchmark. His confession of finding the goods and thinking they were magnets is a humorous yet predictable denial of criminal expertise. The sheer quantity of high-value items coupled with the professional-grade security tag remover destroys his defense. This is a clear case of an organized career offender whose small-time traffic violation exposed his large-time retail theft operation. The officer's focus on the $950 felony threshold in California demonstrates the procedural awareness of the legal thresholds that separate a misdemeanor shoplifting from a career-ending felony. Mark's final defeated silence, "I'm not going to say nothing, man," is the moment the psychological game ends and the procedural reality of the felony arrest begins. This first foray into the fascinating, if slightly chaotic world of everyday law enforcement viewed through the lens of a budding criminal psychologist with a penchant for deadpan humor serves up a delicious trio of cautionary tales. We kick off with a classic, the vehicular pursuit, or as some officers lightly call it, mandatory high-speed sightseeing. The protagonist, a gentleman in a silver Toyota Camry, provides a textbook example of evasion psychology. He's first spotted driving erratically, suggesting an immediate, almost reflexive flight response to perceived authority. What's crucial here is the officer's initial observation. The suspect left a motel known for a lot of gang activity, narcotic sales. This immediately establishes a high probability context for his subsequent behavior. The environment, it seems, is a powerful predictor of the crime, or at least the criminal. The assumption of a possible GTA Grand Theft Auto elevates the chase's stakes, but the real psychological jackpot is the suspect's subsequent circling West Covina. He's performing a vehicular security blanket maneuver. He's not fleeing to an unknown destination, he's retreating to a familiar, comfortable, and thus predictable operational area. He knows the game, dude. One officer notes, which is a neat street-level way of saying, "This perp has an established criminal cognitive map." The humorous irony is that his attempt to leverage local knowledge, knowing the game, actually makes his capture easier for the police, who also know the neighborhood. It's like a criminal calling King Me on a checkerboard of his own design. The pursuit culminates with the suspect stopping, and his subsequent interaction with the police is a goldmine of post-apprehension rationalization. After being cornered literally and figuratively, he breaks down the classic psychological defenses. His immediate apology for the boast and the attempt to blame the entire high-speed felony on a relapse involving cocaine and alcohol is a transparent, though tragically real attempt at mitigating circumstances and shift agency. He's trying to reframe himself not as a willful lawbreaker, but as a victim of addiction, a good person who F times ed up tonight. The interrogation, particularly the officer's calm, focused questioning, relapsed with what man is a perfect low-key investigative technique. It allows the suspect to talk himself into a corner, inadvertently providing more information than he intends. The officer's final summation is clinically dry and devoid of emotional judgment. You're just gonna go for felony evading and evading on the wrong side of the roadway. No drama, just paperwork. A delightful juxtaposition to the earlier cinematic chase. The suspect's final oddly generous offer of his Starbucks, "My clothes, my shoes," reveals a psychological state of total surrender and a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of control or goodwill by offering irrelevant items. Next up, we have Peter and the Purloined Plugin, a case of suspected burglary in progress that quickly devolves into a farce of poor decision-making. The police arrive at a business where a reporting party advised a male was trying to break into a business. The initial crime is burglary in progress, but Peter, in a move baffling to both law and logic, immediately takes off running. This is the most common and often most disastrous psychological failure in low-level crime, the flight response. As one officer dryly notes, when an officer tells you to stop, you have to stop, a fundamental truth Peter seems determined to ignore. His attempt to flee only to be cornered behind a gas station converts a potentially minor investigative stop into a definite detention. The humor here lies in Peter's persistent, almost whimsical post-capture defense, "I was just fixing the cable." He's a self-appointed, unauthorized cable repairman in a time of crisis. The subsequent revelations that Peter is known for taking off from the cops all the time paints a picture of a repeat offender whose running is a deeply ingrained, almost compulsive behavioral script. The investigation confirms he took the camera down, and his weak defense, I put it up there, I was just assembling, everything is a pathetic attempt at reversal of intent. He is ultimately arrested for vandalism and the delay of investigation caused by his unnecessary jog. The officer's final, almost paternal advice sums up the psychological lesson perfectly. If you did nothing running, you just added something. Finally, a traffic stop on Joel for a license plate light provides a masterclass in probationary compliance psychology and hidden criminality. Joel is nervous, which is typical, but his immediate low-resistance admission to having a little bit of dope is a fascinating tactical play, likely stemming from his prior experience and current status on probation for drugs. He attempts to minimize the crime right out of the gate, believing that partial honesty will engender leniency. The officer, however, is an expert in reading the psychological landscape. The probation status immediately gives the officer search conditions a key investigative leverage point. The discovery of the drugs is expected, but the discovery of a magnetic box hidden underneath places is the key investigative jump from simple user to street-level sales. This is a critical psychological distinction. The user is disorganized and focused on consumption. The dealer is organized, tactical, and focused on concealment and profit. The discovery of the $0, $22 caliber magazine, and subsequently the loaded gun one in the hole-in-the-door panel shatters Joel's dopey user persona and confirms the officer's suspicion of a higher-level criminal engagement. His final plea, I would have told you bro, regarding the gun is a desperate attempt to cling to the earlier partially honest narrative, but the evidence of the organized concealment of a loaded unregistered firearm paints him as a calculated felon. Joel's story is a tragicomic arc of attempted minimization thwarted by the physical evidence of his true criminal intent, providing a fascinating psychological case study in how small lies unravel bigger ones. The police work here is exemplary, using small traffic violations as pretext stops to leverage known criminal profiles' probation status into major felony arrests, a highly effective